Nobody wan comot for house if the house dey comfortable. I dey fire Edo economy make e for benefit the people. Governor Obaseki to US Ambassador. Edo State Governor Obaseki don tok say im and United States dey look for areas wey dem go invest to sustain gains for agriculture, economy, healthcare and education wey Obaseki administration don record. Obaseki yarn dis one when he welcome United States Ambassador to Naija, Mary Leonard, for Government House, Benin City on Tuesday. Governor Obaseki come talk say im go make sure say im focus on food production and economic growth, and e dey to position young people make dem for take advantage of the opportunities for culture and technology for the world. Obaseki come talk say as a government, their goal na to put Edo for subcontinent, and im dey look forward to work with Royal Palace to build royal collection wey go be Edo Museum of West African Art wey go get plenty ogbonge things to see when you enter inside.
We've always, as a country and as a people, known that the United States government or the United States of America is our friend. Many of us have had the privilege to have lived in the US, and some of them here worked there, some of them just recently come back. And so there's that, affinity and that history that we share as a people. The last time we spoke, was at a Zoom meeting where you couldn't make that trip to witness the flag of the oil palm project for one of the American companies that's involved in our Edo State oil palm program. And as you pointed out, for us, it's all about the economy. If we are able to grow our economy, in line with its potentials, then we'll be addressing a lot of other issues, particularly security, healthcare. So it's about the economy and trying to see how we can fire the economy to the extent that we utilize the potentials that are available. And one key driver for us is agriculture, food, and I can't recall at any time in our history when food has now become the issue, so critical, so important. We always took food for granted throughout our lives, because you go to the back of your house, you grow something, and we never thought about it that a day will come when children can't eat because their parents just can't afford the price of bread anymore, or the price of eggs. And that's where we suddenly have found ourselves, particularly in the last 10, 12 weeks. So for us, the number one issue for us in our agenda today is food availability at the price, and for us to be able to sustainably continue to produce food. We have really no excuse not to. Also, engaging with our young people, trying to position them and prepare them or to take advantage of the opportunities globally, particularly in the areas of technology. Tell you a bit more about what we're doing in the space, in the technology space, in entertainment, in the arts, and that's why your emphasis on culture is important for us. In order to be competitive economically, the key asset you need are your people. So they've got to be educated, they've got to be skilled, and therefore, in the last 5-6 years of us being in government, we have continued to emphasize education, particularly foundational education. We realize that it's that lack of hope, poor education, that's a fuel for irregular migration. So in the last 6 years, we've tried as much as we can to stem the tide of irregular migration from Edo, not just through legislation, but also trying to create opportunities for young people, trying to create hope for them, try to make home like home. Nobody wants to live home if home is comfortable. Our goal as a government is to just take advantage of our competitive and comparative advantages. Two things about Edo. First, it's the best located state in West Africa. Because it's in the center of everything. That's why we call ourselves the heartbeat of Nigeria. If Edo stops working, then Nigeria stops working. because we're the heart. Because you can't go from the western to western part of the country to the east or to the south or to the north without going through the state. So we are a hub, a natural hub, and that's why all the major national infrastructure go through the state, whether it's gas, whether it's electricity or transport. And so we're trying to leverage that for economic growth. And the other advantage we have is our culture, our heritage, and if you look around the world, I think we represent Africa in the world culture stage. And we're fortunate that the conversations we've been having about, return of works has now materialized. And for us, what does this mean? It means that we are beginning to re-emphasize in another form a connection between Africa, our culture, and the rest of the world. And in our conversations through the Benin Dialogue Group through the years, the emphasis was first, let's understand the provenance of our works, how you got that. Let's understand the numbers of the species we have globally. So you have the Digital Benin Project. Let's also understand that these works are also our ambassadors. So for us as a government, we want to now relate these works to the younger generations. Because for us, we see a lot of creativity, we see a lot of innovation, and it's important for them to understand where all of these attributes are coming from. That 500-600 years ago, the Afrobians created some of the finest pieces of work. So we're very, very excited. The last US ambassador was here, came in to open a Smithsonian exhibition, which we collaborated with the federal government and the Smithsonian on by, refurbishing the local museum for that exhibition. I think it's still there. And so for us as a government, our goal is to position Edo, Benin City, as a cultural hub for the subcontinent.
Mary Leonard will be United States Ambassador to Nigeria, come here Obaseki for the anti-trafficking law when control irregular migration among the young people for the state. She can here say the museums for America, they work sharply to bring back the artifacts with them bab from Benin.
On the issue of food costs and food security, I mean, this is, it's always been a difficult issue, but with the recent, Russian invasion of Ukraine, really has brought that issue to the forefront by frustrating movement of production and movement of wheat and production and movement of fertilizer. It's really tough. And what I can tell you is that the United States government is very, very focused not only on this as a worldwide problem, but as a problem that has a particularly difficult impact in Africa. So, for example, something that the State Department and USAID are speaking about on a regular basis. Just last week, or was it the week before, the federal Minister of Agriculture was in New York for a meeting convened with Secretary Blinken to ask about the sorts of solutions that people thought were important. And I know that in the very recently passed legislation with more money from the United States from Ukraine, there is also an element of assistance on food sorts of grounds internationally. So it's a huge problem, and it's something that the United States is very focused on, and I think that we need to coordinate quite closely in figuring out how to mitigate the aspects of it, because it really is such a perfect storm. Already with the economic fallout of COVID-19 and its impact on fuel prices first going one way and then the other way, not necessarily more helpfully in the Nigerian context, and then with this additional punch with food prices. It's a really tough time that requires a lot of partnership and a lot of management. On the question of the American doctors coming here, since I joined the Foreign Service, I do U.S. foreign policy. But the United States government in some ways does only the very narrowest part of U.S. foreign policy, because our citizens are out there making their own through the personal connections that they make in volunteerism and doing good works around the world. And it's just never ceases to astonish me in every country I have lived how many private Americans are doing great work, and I'm glad to see that it's come here as well. On the art scene, I couldn't agree more on the the use of the works as cultural ambassadors. I think that there's a lot of scope, certainly, to do what is right in keeping ownership where ownership belongs, but also making sure that these works of art continue to contribute to not only Nigerians' images of themselves, and that's very, very important, but also the world's understanding of Nigeria as a cultural icon. So the idea of these works being able to inspire young artists, perhaps to riff off them in creating things, and more generally, I'm very privileged as the United States ambassador to be able to borrow works of art from my residents, and I've got the things by Victor Ekpuk, who incorporates Nsidibi writings, and I actually purchased one of his, and Oshu Audu as well, and just took one of his very graphic charcoal Beninese queen heads now belongs to me too. But those are people who, okay, you're younger than me, maybe not young, but certainly are emblematic of Nigerian artists who are so eager to incorporate older traditions into much more modern works. And I think it's a fabulous instinct, and one that keeps the art scene and the cultural vibrancy of Nigeria not only something that is a retrospective look, but something that is part of its today. And it's very, very, very exciting indeed. You've noticed that we have some of our public affairs officers here, and also a visitor from our Office of Cultural Heritage, obviously a huge locus for focus in your state. You know that very recently we signed a cultural preservation agreement to help combat trafficking in precious objects. And of course, both the U.S. Smithsonian, the federally run Museum of African Art, as well as a number of American institutions, have many Benin bronzes, and there are so many important discussions going on about their return and the exchanges that can go along around them. So we're looking forward to engaging with many actors on that front. You know, really so to be commended, Governor, for your Edo State's trafficking in person prohibition law. The effort against trafficking in person is such an intense subject of focus for the United States government, and so it's great to be able to exchange on how state governments are able to contribute against that scourge. We're very involved here in the area of health, and as we across Nigeria see approaching credibly HIV epidemic control in the next 18 months, the question then becomes, how do you sustain that in the long term? The HIV has now become a disease that is detectable as well as fairly easily manageable, but it must be managed for life. So things like the Health Insurance Commission law is, I think, a big part of how societies manage to sustain that in the longer term, as this becomes just an element of the furniture as opposed to a truly threatening epidemic as it was just so recently in our own lifetimes. We're also eager to work with you on expanding the uptake of COVID-19 vaccines. The U.S. is so proud to have been a major contributor, I believe, on the order of 27 million vaccines so far, and more to come. But more importantly, spending upwards of $30 million to help individual states, including Edo State, puzzle through how to move vaccines and get them into people's arms, so that we can make sure that we're all safe now and for the waves that may follow in the future. So in sum, when it comes to our health programming, when it comes to our shared interests in agricultural promotion, economic development, in our shared interest at preserving cultural heritage, it's really wonderful to finally, as I said, have my toes in Edo State.
Ebo Sereme Obinome, TMC TV News.